his prizes, he has prized a Frogadier. That is certainly not what he wants to see, because you want to ideally water duplicates and put 4 Frogadier down on the board on your second turn of the game, but prizing just 1 is manageable. He's going to use that Brooklet Hill, activate it, go get a second Froakie, so he doesn't just get his lone basic knocked out.
Yeah. In this deck, this Brooklet Hill turn 1 is very important so that you don't just end up losing immediately.
Right. Going to shuffle up here. Greninja, not really a deck that requires many more cards to be played on its first turn, or really even its second turn. You just need to build towards that water duplicates. Joey has the option to potentially attach an energy and bubble, but says, nope, this is all I need is 2 Froakies to guarantee I will get the Frogadier on the next turn, assuming he has it in his hand. We'll go back over to Edwin, who has the Buzzwole and the active position, benches a Regirock, and with a strong energy, that Jet Punch is going to knock out Froakie.
So these Greninja decks, a lot of the time, their early games are just... their turns seem really lackluster, but all Greninja wants in the first turn is 2 Frogadiers, and then to have a 2 Froakies, and then to have a Frogadier and an energy next turn.
Yep.
So they can start setting up. Unfortunately for Joey, his active Buzzwole just has a basic fighting on it, so it's only doing 40, not knocking out the Froakie, but it will set up for a knockout on both Froakies if Joey is not able to draw into his Frogadiers.
Edwin making use of Joey's Brooklet Hill here, going to go try to find Rockruff, and then discovering, oh, I have no Rockruffs in my deck. They're all in the prizes, or at least both of them are in the prizes. Yeah. So he cannot get a Rockruff here. Having access to Bloodthirsty Eyes, certainly useful to be able to pull around the splash energy that Joey is going to be playing. If you can pull up something that does not have splash energy and knock out a Greninja that doesn't get pulled back to the hand through the splash energies effect, that's something that is very powerful. And if Joey is not using the Shadow Stitching attack to shut off Edwin's abilities, definitely an option Edwin would like to have available to him. So accessing one of those Rockruffs out of his prize is definitely going to be a priority of his.
Yeah, Lycanroc also, if it has 1 strong energy on it, it will take a knockout on a Greninja before it break evolves, and then it can keep attacking. It's got a little more HP than Buzzwole, only 10 HP, but that can be relevant in some occasions.
Joey going to go here, evolve into the Frogadier. Does he have an energy? He's got a splash energy, in fact. So he can use that Brooklet Hill, get another Froakie on the board, and then go for the water duplicates, fill his bench up. And with the splash energy, that Frogadier is going to come back to his hand, which means he'll be able to evolve this fresh Froakie that he's going to be putting down onto the bench through this Brooklet Hill. So pretty decent setup so far from Joey. The only downside, as he's going to announce water duplicates at this point, is... well, one of the Frogadier is in the prizes.
Well, he is also about to lose probably 2 prize cards here, or Edwin will be gaining 2 prize cards.
Right.
Frogadier is going to get knocked out by this Jet Punch, and so is that Froakie with 30 damage on the bench, as long as it doesn't get evolved into a Frogadier this turn. But that's okay. This Greninja deck usually falls behind in prize cards early in the game, and just has like an extreme comeback at the end. It's amazing sometimes what this Greninja deck can really pull off. In the late game.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll see Greninja decks play like some number of counter catcher and just accepting the fact that, yeah, I'm going to go down some prizes, but I am certainly a late game deck, and the counter catcher just becomes even more powerful and just say, I can pull up whenever I want, or whatever I want, whenever I want, because I know I'm going to be down a couple prizes. But in the end, Giant Water Shuriken and Shadow Stitching, very powerful combo.
Yeah, Greninja has just so many mechanics. Greninja Break, free retreat, an attack that blocks abilities, an ability that snipes 60 damage anywhere on the field. That is such a large amount of damage.
It really is.
It's got 170 HP, which on a non-EX or GX Pokemon is about as high as you're going to get, really.
It really is, yeah, and Choice Band doesn't work against it because it is on an EX or GX Pokemon, so it's really hard to hit that number.
Yeah, a lot of these damage multipliers are anti-EX, GX. There's a lot of balancing cards in the Pokemon trading card game to make it so that EX and GX cards are not the only things that are playable. But those cards are played in many decks, but Greninja gets through all of those cards.
So Edwin's turn here, he's going to go with the Max Elixir, does hit it, and it goes to a bench Buzzwole, puts down a Choice Band. Technically not that relevant against Greninja. Greninja usually does play one Tapu Lele GX, and we do see in Joey's list, he does play one of those. Also does play an Espeon EX. Probably not going to see that come into play this game, or this matchup at all. So that Choice Band, marginally effective. Mostly just wants to get it out of his hand, Edwin does, so that he doesn't draw it off of this end to 6. And Joey, pretty grateful to receive that end. His hand was a little thin, so gets a couple extra cards here. And we're going to see the big Greninja turn of, does he have double Greninja in his hand? Can he evolve both of those Frogadiers?
Yeah, Greninja really just wants to draw into these breaks really fast. We do see an Evo Soda in Joey's hand, so he will be able to go and grab at least one Greninja this turn.
Yeah, Joey playing a full 4 copies of Evo Soda because you really just need to keep evolving over and over with this deck. He's going to go through, get one of his Greninjas, going to count and see, okay, I have all of my Greninjas still available, I have all of my breaks. Goes with a second Evo Soda, really showing what 4 full copies will do for you because you draw them so often. And that is pretty much, given his board state from the previous turn, this is exactly what Joey wants to be able to do. He can even go get either another Froakie, or if he wants, and get Staryu, which he does do. Does play the 1/1 Starmie line with that Space Beacon ability, allowing him to discard a card from his hand and get 2 energies out of his discard pile. That's how he fuels his giant water shuriken train at the end of the game.
Yeah, Starmie is such an amazing card in this deck because as we talked about Greninja Bake's giant water shuriken ability, just discarding 1 water from your hand to go do 60 anywhere. Starmie can just go and grab those energies out of your discard pile by just discarding 1 card.
Yeah, so we're going to go the Ultra Ball here. Joey discarding a Cynthia, going to go get his Tapu Lele and use it a little early here in the game because he wants to see the end come down. He wants to put Edwin down to 4 cards, which is pretty strong move here. He sets him down to 4 cards and then goes with a Shadow Stitching. Even if Edwin were to draw Tapu Lele, Ultra Ball, or an Octillery, it doesn't replenish his hand. He's going to be stuck with just those 4 cards.
Yeah, he's only going to get 4. What Joey is really trying to do here is not let Edwin draw into an energy card.
Right.
He wants to save this Greninja for at least another turn. If he can hit for 40 with a Shadow Stitching, he can start doing things with giant water shurikens next turn.
Yeah, it's really critical for this Greninja deck, if at all possible, to maintain 2 Greninjas after your opponent's turn, because that means you can break evolve twice. And if you get 2 Greninja breaks down, that's twice the amount of giant water shurikens that you can have available to you. So,
also critical right now is that Joey is he's playing 2 copies of Enhanced Hammer, and he would love to be able to play those down, but Edwin has not dropped a single strong energy. We see the Enhanced Hammer in Joey's hand, but he will not be able to get rid of any energy and try to slow down Edwin.
Right, yeah. He would have absolutely loved to have removed one of those 2 energies on the active Buzzwole with this play, because Edwin does have plenty of energies in his hand to go with either Absorption or Knuckle Impact for the knockout here. Going to use that Brooklet Hill, go back into the deck. He can get that Rockruff now because he took it off of the prizes and then it got into the deck. So he can put Rockruff on the bench now. But Joey's going to be doing everything he can to shut off Edwin's abilities. So we'll see if Lycanroc ends up being able to use its Bloodthirsty Eyes this game.
Yeah, one bad thing that can happen for Edwin is if Joey ever does get 2 Greninja breaks out, he can Giant Water Shuriken, retreat Giant Water Shuriken, knock out both the Remoraid and the Rockruff. Those can be 2 easy prize cards on your bench. It's almost as if we go back to last season and there's a Shaman EX sitting there.
Right, yeah, 2 prizes for 2 energy activations, not even an attack. Would be very strong from Joey. He definitely will want to get through this first Buzzwole that has energies first, but definitely down the line, a play that he could look to make as Edwin commits his 3rd basic energy to the active Buzzwole means I'm still protected from the Enhanced Hammer. And now I can use my Absorption GX, 160 damage, knock out that Greninja, and Joey will only have 1 Greninja break option this coming turn.
Yeah, Joey's kind of falling into this hole that he needs to try to climb out of. He can take a knockout on this active this turn if he's able to draw into a Choice Band and 2 energies. And he can go grab the Starmie if he really wants it. There's also other options. He needs to get more Greninja pieces out as well this turn.
Yeah, ideally he finds another Greninja as well as uses that Brooklet Hill to get his 4th Froakie onto the board so that he can continue to keep the evolution going to end Edwin down to 3 cards now. And if he wants to get this knockout on this Buzzwole, it's not going to be involving Shadow Stitching. With the Choice Band, Shadow Stitching does 70, Giant Water Shuriken would add another 60, not going to quite knock out the Buzzwole. It'll leave it 20 short of the knockout. So if Joey wants to take this knockout here, he's not going to be shutting off abilities, and Edwin can recover with an Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele or for the Octillery here.
Yeah, thankfully for Joey, there is no strong energy on that Buzzwole GX, so Buzzwole will only be attacking for 160, which would be 10 short of knocking out this Greninja break.
Well, only if he uses the Shadow Stitching, because if he goes with Moonlight Slash, that Regirock boosts it up to that 170 number. So
it all depends on whether or not he decides to try and go for a knockout this turn. He still needs a Choice Band for that to happen.
I don't think I saw it in his hand either, so he's going to activate the Brooklet Hill, gets another Froakie, does also find the Greninja to evolve the bench Frogadier, so does do what he needs to in order to continue the Greninja train going, but without that Choice Band, I think he has to go for Shadow Stitching here and force Edwin to have a strong energy in those 3 cards that he got shuffled into. Because otherwise, that Greninja break just gets knocked out.
Another good thing about, even if he does hit that strong energy, he's committing a 4th energy to 1 Buzzwole.
Right.
And so that bench Buzzwole only has the 1 energy, and you can start to do things and try to pick it off later in the game.
Yeah, so we'll see if Joey, what he decides to do. He's going to have to activate that Space Beacon, discards a Rescue Stretcher, gets only that 1 basic water energy out of his discard pile, the only one he had in there, but at the end of the day, it's the only one he really needs. He only has 1 Giant Water Shuriken he can activate, so opting to use the Giant Water Shuriken instead of holding on to the Rescue Stretcher, the question then becomes, do you put the 60 on the Buzzwole, or do you put it on a benched Pokemon and knock it out? He opts to put it on the Buzzwole, even though he can't get the knockout this turn. He's going to just go Shadow Stitching for 40.
I think putting it on the active is correct. It puts it at 140, which now a Giant Water Shuriken will knock it out, and then you can start focusing on dealing with other threats on the board, like that Buzzwole GX that has 1 energy. You don't want it to ever get to 3. Oh, and a Sycamore Rip from Edwin is... and a Strong Energy.
Yeah, Sycamore and Strong Energy, 2 of the cards that Edwin wanted to see the most. Does commit his attachment for the turn to the active. With the Splash Energy on Joey's active Greninja Break, it will bounce back up to the hand with this knockout. Edwin does not play any copies of Enhanced Hammer, so there is no way that that Greninja Break will be going to the discard pile, so at least he'll be able to re-break Evolve, Joey will, and then use that Space Beacon to use the Giant Water Shuriken to knock out the active. And then Edwin, now that he misses that Max Elixir, only will have 1 energy on the board.
Yeah, still critically for Joey is that he only has the 1 energy, so he can't get it back, Giant Water Shuriken, and attack all in the same turn with that 1 water energy.
Right, he's going to need to find another water energy or a supporter in order to get to that water energy.
And we just watched Edwin with 2 Max Elixirs.
Hitting either of those would have been huge because he would have had a Buzzwole with 2 energies to follow up this attack, meaning he wouldn't, he'd be able to just promote, attach a Strong Energy, and be able to take another knockout with Knuckle Impact.
Yeah, that is a massive, those are 2 massive misses for Edwin here. It looks like he has 3 elixirs in his discard pile.
Yeah.
And this might give Joey the opening he needs to be able to take this game.
Yeah, Edwin playing 10 basic fighting energies as well, so missing both of those Max elixirs is certainly surprising. There are 4 basic fightings on the board, and 2, maybe 3 fighting in the discard pile, so not necessarily a high count remaining in the deck, but Edwin opting to play 10 fighting energy instead of the more standard 9, saying, I really don't want to miss hitting these Max elixirs, and just unfortunately for him, not quite getting there this time.
I do know that most of the Buzzwole Lycanroc decks in this top 8 did decide to play the 10 energy, and a lot of them made that as a last-minute cut. I know I was talking to Ryan Sablehouse, who was also playing a Buzzwole Lycanroc deck, that he cut his super odd last minute for a 10th basic fighting energy. And Igor Costa is playing that exact same list, so he is also playing the 10 fighting energy.
All right, so 10 fighting energy might end up becoming the standard after this tournament. We'll see if Joey is able to start to take over this board. He's running thin on Greninja pieces. He does have the break active, but just the Frogadier on the bench right now. Going to use the Space Beacon, trades out that Ultra Ball for the water energy. Going to be able to take 2 prizes with this Giant Water Shuriken, and if he does take his prizes in the way that most players do, he would get the water energy off of the prizes and can attack with that. But of course, Joe doesn't know that. I'm just going to go with Choice Band Shadow Stitching and get the knockout that way.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Joey. That's definitely the safest play. Joey doesn't know that he has that water energy right there in the prize cards. If he knew, of course, he would take the 60 and take the extra attack here. But he's just going to oh, and he doesn't evolve his bench. Was that bench Froakie not a Frogadier already?
I don't actually recall if he had evolved it, or even if he had an out to evolve it.
Well, he just got the Splash Energy just brought the whole.
You're right. So yeah, it
lineup.
must have been a Frog. It was a Froakie because he had just Brooklet Hilled for it, so he evolved the Frogadier. Not really in threat of losing the break right now, so it's okay to not have another Greninja on the board. Uses the Shadow Stitching again, so Abyssal Hand, not available to Edwin. Dangerous Rogue, or rather Bloodthirsty Eyes, not available to Edwin. So deck's starting to run a little clunky here without these abilities, and when you miss those max elixirs, suddenly Buzzwole Lycanroc, without abilities and without a bunch of energy acceleration, not a very impressive deck.
Yeah, he does at least have one fighting energy in hand, so we'll have to see. If he is able to just draw into 2 fighting energies over the next couple turns, he should be in an okay spot to win this game. Joey's going to have to hit something like an N after this turn. Edwin does need still 2 prize cards, so Joey can set up a 3rd Greninja break for the game,
right,
and try to take the game that way.
Right.
So.
I can't help but imagine that Edwin is probably planning to try to get these last 2 prize cards through that Tapu Lele on the bench and then a Guzma play, because it's going to be way too difficult to try to go through 2 more Greninja breaks this game. So I can only imagine he does have, I think that was Guzma in his hand.
There is a Guzma in hand, but there is not an energy card.
Right. So missing those max elixirs was critical here, because otherwise he would have won the game this turn. Gonna have to just go with this Ultra Ball, get another Pokemon out of his deck, but nothing really going to be that important that's going to have any sort of impact, because Edwin has no abilities. Shadow Stitching is very strong.
You can still grab something like this Octillery to try and say, okay, force your opponent to never do more than just the 70 damage or the 40 damage if there's no choice band.
Yeah.
But it still, it hurts.
It does also protect that Remoraid from just getting immediately
Yes, it does. It does do
with
that as well.
With that Giant Water Shuriken. So definitely still a good move, even though you cannot activate that Abyssal Hand ability this turn. Definitely a good insight from Edwin. And going to check Joe's discard pile before he goes. And do you think he's going to do a Jet Punch for just the 30 this turn? Or do you think he leaves it on the bench and tries to keep it healthy?
It depends on what Edwin's trying to go for a win condition. If he's trying to swing through these 2 Greninjas, he can Jet Punch, put damage on both the Greninja and the Frogadier, and then next turn use Knuckle Impact.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough, actually, going forward from here for Edwin. He plays an N.
N card, okay. Joe goes down to 4. N is an interesting card to be played against the Greninja deck because it doesn't play any draw support on its board, but it does play the Starmie on its board. And oftentimes, Greninja really just needs to draw energies. If there's breaks on the board, you just want to see energy cards. So even though Joe might not have any sort of draw supporter when he gets N down to 4, he still has access to Space Beacon. That's what matters.
He still does only have the... Oh, he doesn't have any waters.
He actually doesn't have any. That's right, because he had the one in his hand from the prizes, but none in the discard yet. So actually, you're right. Might be a little bit more impactful. Edwin also only gets 2 cards off of the N and can't activate Abyssal Hand, so going to retreat, it's going to be Jet Punch. Let's see if it goes to the Frogadier or the Lele. It's going to be Lele. Now Edwin does not require a strong energy or choice band with that Guzma move, and really just showing his hand full front and saying, hey, I'm going for that Lele for game.
Yeah. And he still has no strong energy down, so not susceptible to those enhanced hammers.
Right.
That is the one good thing that Edwin has had going for him this game, is he's not been forced to attach strong energies. Instead, he has been able to attach just the basic fighting.
Right. He's only been attaching strong energies when he needs them exactly for that turn, and then enhanced hammer wouldn't have mattered.
Yes.
And so again, in this case, he would be attaching strong energy just in time for the knockout. But now, doesn't even need that. Joey going to have the Greninja from hand, so it's certainly really good from him. Activates the Brooklet Hill and just fails it. Nothing that he wants to get there.
I think he's out of Froakies. If not, he only has 1 left.
Yeah,
he does have an N in hand, so he can shuffle and draw a couple cards, and then draw back into and then put Edwin back down to 2 other cards that he might not want.
I think it would be correct. I don't know if he's got out to a Greninja break in his hand, but to play the N, try and find a basic water energy here so he can activate that Giant Water Shuriken ability, and he does go for it. Not before attaching his splash energy to the active first, though. So now he has a couple of options. If he wants to continue the Shadow Stitching lock, which I imagine is what he wants to do, considering Octillery is on the board, he now has that splash energy in play, so if that Greninja were to get knocked out by a Knuckle Impact, he'd be able to play down another break. The second option he has is, if he really wants to, he can go with the Moonlight Slash, returning that basic water to his hand, doing 110 damage in total, and then he has a water energy in his hand in order to use Giant Water Shuriken.
I don't believe that Joey's really in a position where he can afford to not Shadow Stitch. He does hit a water energy, it looks like, so he can go ahead and Giant Water Shuriken the active. There's very good math on Joey's side for this Buzzwole deck. 70 damage from Moonlight Slash and then 260s from Giant Water Shuriken will be enough.
Right, yeah. Puts the 60 damage down with Giant Water Shuriken, says Shadow Stitching, 70 damage to you, setting him to a perfect 60 left. Edwin's hand only 3 cards, still no abilities. So Tapu Lele does nothing for him. Abyssal Hand, nothing for him. Max Elixir, let's see if he can hit it this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, it does. Goes to the Sudowoodo. He could use Watch and Learn and could copy Shadow Stitching and turn off Giant Water Shuriken.
He turns off Giant Water Shuriken, and then he gets 3-shot by Shadow Stitching, kind of trying to force Joey's hand into just knocking it out or giving him his abilities back.
Right, yeah, so Shadow Stitching could certainly be a good move here to return from Edwin's side. Going to go with Jet Punch, though. He starts to put the dice down and says 30 here, 30 here. Go over to Joey, and it's starting to look at a very dominant position because we're going to start to see double Giant Water Shuriken. Edwin's going to go ahead and just concede. You can't go through 2 breaks at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So what Joey can do there is just deal with that one Sudowoodo on Edwin's bench with those Giant Water Shurikens and just take the active knockout with Shadow Stitch. And then he has 1 prize card left, and Edwin has no energy on board, so he would just end up winning the game the next turn.
There we go. We see the power of the Greninja Break deck. Goes down on prizes early. After 2 Jet Punches, already had hemorrhage 2 prizes. In the end, still powerful enough to just say Shadow Stitching, Shadow Stitching. Drop 60 here, drop 60 here. Very powerful deck, and we'll see if we can see any sort of different game plan come out of Edwin in game 2. Maybe there's a way he can apply a little bit more pressure. Maybe hit some more of his Max Elixirs so that his Buzzwalls end up doing more damage and he's not stuck just doing Jet Punch in the late game.
One of the most powerful comeback mechanics in Pokemon is being able to ability lock your opponent and then end them and put them down to 1, 2, 3 cards.
Yeah.
And while so many decks, their draw is based on these Pokemon's abilities, just about every deck in the format has some sort of extra draw based on Pokemon.
Right, either through trade or Zoroark's trade or Octillery's Abyssal Hand.
Yeah,
right?
so or even Tapu Lele can go and grab another supporter card. So you're stopping all of that, making your opponent draw less of the cards that they need to be able to seal the game.
Yeah, we've historically seen Garbodor from Breakpoint with the Garbotoxin ability. A lot of times that has been very powerful. Back when Guardians Rising was first released, being able to activate Garbotoxin, play end, put your opponent down to a small hand size, and unlock those abilities, very powerful. Shadow Stitching is even more powerful than that because Field Blower doesn't remove the ability lock. You are locked for the turn unless you play Pokemon Ranger, which is not at all a common card in standard format right now. So you're just kind of stuck there with a 3-card hand and no abilities, and you can see even the most aggressive and fast deck in Buzzwole Lycanroc can kind of just flop sometimes.
It is important to note that Edwin really just, if he hit one of those 2 elixirs, he was probably in a dominant position going forward.
Totally different game.
So we need to keep that in mind. But yeah, this Greninja deck is very strong, and we'll have to see if Joey can keep rolling the way that he has been throughout this entire tournament.
Right, yeah, it was a pretty good setup out of Joey. Even though he had prized one of the Frogadiers, he didn't miss his turn 2 water duplicates. He had double Greninja on the following turn. Those are the big keys that you want. You want turn 2 water duplicates, and you want at least 2 Greninjas on the next turn. That way you can try to build up to that double break, because once you get to double break, it is so hard for your opponent to answer.
The Greninja deck really is just trying to get to double break, and at that point, it's almost like double break is a win condition for them.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in game 1 there, the second he goes to double break, Edwin says, I can't win this game anymore, and concedes all of his, scoops up all of his cards and concedes the game.
But here we go with game 2. And we do see the Espeon start, but as we said earlier, thankfully for Joey, Edwin is not playing corner Rockruff.
Yeah, no corner Rockruff to lock that Espeon active. Of course, Joey is playing just the one Espeon EX and the one Tapu Lele GX. Everything else is just worth 1 prize. Espeon EX, definitely his worst starter, being that A, he doesn't want to use it in this matchup. He also doesn't want to ever really have an extra 2 prize Pokemon on the board when you don't want to have to do that.
Yeah, he doesn't want the extra 2 prize attacker, and then it has that 1 retreat cost, so you have to retreat into a Froakie.
Yeah.
So you have to hit an energy turn 1 on it and the Froakie.
And turn 2, which means instead of just trying to find 1 energy to attach and use water duplicates, now you gotta find 2. And right now, I don't see any in his hands, so Joey might have a really difficult setup this game, and we might have a quick game 2 going into game 3 here.
One thing that might slow this game down a little bit is that Edwin's going to have a little trouble knocking out these Froakies early because he did prize his Regirock EX.
Yep. Now, only playing the 1 copy here, so the fact that that is in the prizes means Jet Punch is going to cap at 50 with 1 energy attachment. 2 strong energies means it would do the 70 and would get the knockout that way. But unless he's got a strong energy attachment on this turn, he's not going to be knocking out Froakies.
Yeah, and then also in Edwin's prizes are those 2 fighting energies. Those could make those elixirs a little bit weaker, like we've been saying all weekend. Fighting energies are something you really don't want prized in this Buzzwole deck because your elixirs are so valuable and so important.
And we see it right here. Edwin goes for a max elixir and again fails it, and just goes straight into the Cynthia. Says, all right, well, we'll try again, see if I can maybe draw some more cards here to apply a little bit of gas.
We'll have to see what Edwin draws into. He gets at least 1 energy. I see a strong.
Strong as well. Joey prizing Enhanced Hammer, so strong energy is a little bit safer. Joey does play 2 copies of that card, though, so that strong energy might still get removed. It'll just be a little bit more difficult for Joey in order to come across that Enhanced Hammer.
Strong energy also allows that Joey can draw into double. Sorry, he can draw. The Edwin can draw into double strong energy onto the Buzzwole and knock out a Froakie or a Frogadier.
Exactly. Yeah, without having access to Regirock, that's really his only option for getting that quick knockout. But of course, Joey also is not going to have a Froakie in the active position at this point. That Espeon is going to stay there because he certainly doesn't want to promote his lone Froakie that he's going to have and then just have it get jet punched immediately. So going to want to leave it on the bench. So unless Edwin has access to Guzma, this strong energy math doesn't really matter too much onto Froakie.
Look to see what he grabs. His hand looked a little dead, so I wouldn't be totally shocked if we saw the Lele come down. He does go ahead and grab a Froakie. It is what he wants to get on the turn 1.
Yeah, so he's going to get that Froakie down. Ideally, you see that second one, but do you really want to expend a second Ultra Ball? Discard Starmie. He's gone down 2 Ultra Ball and 2 Evo Soda. And he's going to go with Tapu Lele to go grab Cynthia because he doesn't have any energy cards. And he needs an energy card on turn 1 and turn 2 if he wants that water duplicates to come through.
And he needs at least one of them to be a basic water to be able to retreat the Espeon EX.
Right.
Because the Splash Energy cannot be attached to the Espeon EX
Correct.
to retreat.
Correct. So certainly looking for a basic water energy here. It's okay if he does get just a splash energy because he can play it down onto the Froakie and then the following turn try and dig for that water. But in any case, needs to find an energy here or Joey's start going to be much, much slower than the previous game.
Yeah, there's still a chance for him to pop off here a little bit. These 2 EXs on the board are, 2 EX/GX Pokemon are a little unfortunate on the field as they are 2 prize knockouts that Edwin can take with his Buzzwole GX's attacks.
Yeah.
Thankfully for Joey, he will be shutting off abilities, so it'll be a little bit more difficult for Edwin to be able to bring those Pokemon up, especially at the point in the game when Edwin's going to be like, okay, I can afford to take these attacks right now.
Yeah, so Joey does hit some water energies. He got 2 of them. Going to attach to the active and just pass. This is really smart energy allocation here. A lot of times players would want to put the energy on the Froakie first, but what this does is even if Edwin were to have the cards to pull up a Froakie and knock it out, there's still that Espeon that keeps the energy in play instead of losing that energy that you would attach to the Froakie. So putting it on the active, definitely a good move here from Joey. And now the question becomes, since he's already gone through 2 Ultra Balls and 2 Evo Sodas, and prizing a 3rd Ultra Ball is, does he have out to Frogadier for the next turn? Yeah,
that'd be the real hope. He does play the 4 Evo Sodas, so he has a lot of outs to that card still. But yeah, it is very relevant that he draws into it next turn. He needs, like we said, an energy card and a Frogadier.
Yep.
And if he can do that and get this water duplicates out, then he'll be in a much better situation. We do see he did not prize any of his Frogadiers, but he also does not have bench space for all of these Froakies.
Yeah, so the Espeon EX start here, taking up a spot that Joey really kind of wants to use right now, because now water duplicates will only get 3 of the 4 available Frogadiers that are not in the prizes, so definitely not ideal. If Edwin is able to put together Guzma and some shenanigans to knock out one of those Froakies, then the bench space does open up, but not going to happen.
I wouldn't be surprised here if we saw Guzma on Lele and then a Jet Punch, as Lele doesn't have an energy. It'll delay Joey's Jet Punch one more time. Joey's water duplicates one more turn.
Right, yeah, one more turn behind. And then at that point, you put Greninja in a tough spot where they go, do I wait to use water duplicates on turn 3? Or do I want to just skip the water duplicates and start evolving straight into Greninjas? It's going to be a decision you'll have to make, because Edwin going exactly for the play that you say is a good one, and it certainly is. Jet Punch will do 50 to the active Lele, and then 30. Do you think that goes to the Espeon, or does it go to one of the Froakies?
I think it goes to a Froakie. It's kind of saying, okay, if you don't evolve this Froakie, it's knocked out.
Yeah.
And even if you do evolve it, I can Guzma it up next turn and knock it out. Right. Or he just benches Rockruff. there's no chance that Joey is going to be using Shadow Stitching this next turn.
Right,
So-
makes a lot of sense there. So there's the Jet Punch, 30 down to a Froakie. Edwin following the moves exactly as you were calling them. See if Joey's turn, he has no way of retreating this Lele and Water Dupe, so his turn not going to be great. Does have the evolution, so he does at least protect that Froakie from getting Jet Punched to the bench knockout. Then the rest of this turn probably does not look that great. He only has one energy in hand, so how do you commit that energy when you need to find a second one? Do you put it on the Lele? Does it just get knocked out then?
I feel like it has to go on the Lele. Worst case is it gets knocked out, but it means you still have a retreat for next turn. You can maybe go and try to start setting up this Starmie. You don't have any bench space is the biggest issue with that.
Yeah.
He's going to be at a point here where he needs to just, figure out. He definitely has to figure out his game plan on what exactly he wants to do. If he's ever going to try to water duplicates, or if he's just going to go and say, okay, we're going to go old school here and evolve all the way up.
Yeah, and it looks like with the benching of that third Froakie, he might just be making the decision to bypass water duplicates. If he has another Frogadier in his hand, then I think this is a rather good play because he can evolve that other Froakie as well. Let's see what he's going to do. He's got the Cynthia, so that's certainly a good card to have. See a fresh set of 6 cards. So, yeah, I think if Joey draws into another Frogadier, he just evolves that other Froakie and says, water duplicates, I don't need it this game.
Yeah, he's like, water duplicates, what is that? He doesn't necessarily need to use the water duplicates. He will fall behind, of course, but like we said, like we saw last game, you can fall behind with this Greninja that can still be okay.
Right. It's just scary that this Tapu Lele is going to get very weakened, and through that Tapu Lele and that Espeon GX, Edwin would only have to go through 2 Greninjas in total, and we saw at the ending of Game 1, Edwin was gunning for those 2 prize knockouts, getting so close to winning the game by knocking out that Lele, so being able to potentially take 2 prize knockouts this game, so definitely a good situation here for Edwin, as he's got the Lycanroc GX. Bloodthirsty Eye is going to bring up a Froakie, but that Jet Punch is not enough for a knockout. But what this does do is spreads the damage around a little bit and means as Greninja breaks, as they start to evolve up, it's going to be a little bit easier to knock out.
So this is going to knock out, it is not going to knock out the Froakie.
Right.
And he is again going to either delay the water duplicates, or Joey's going to have to draw into Frogadier Energy. But if he draws into Frogadier Energy, he can only still get 1 Frogadier. So yeah, this is a pretty strong play from Edwin. It's slowing his opponent down more than he already had.
Right. Water duplicates would produce 1 Frogadier from the deck, but then the active Frogadier just gets knocked out. So you actually just don't net any Frogadiers with that move. So Edwin really putting on a lot of pressure here from Joey, but in a weird kind of way, because he's not just taking a bunch of knockouts, he's just making Joey have a really hard time with that setup. Now considering what the Jet Punch is going to spread the damage to, as he goes to 50 to the active, he's going to put it on that Frogadier and says, all right, you got to evolve this again, otherwise it gets knocked out. Do you have Greninja or do you not?
Yeah, he does have, Evo Soda energy. He does need to get an evolution on both of those, both the Frogadier and the Froakie, if at all possible. The Froakie is less important. He can start doing bubbles as well here.
Right, he might have to because he's starting to lose a lot of ground. Being down a bunch of search cards and now not having water duplicates means Joey's going to be really hard pressed for finding all these evolutions out of his deck and evolving up. It's going to be very difficult for him to find that double break win condition that he generated in Game 1.
One interesting thing about Top Cut here is that we were playing 75 minutes instead of the 50 minutes that we were playing in Swiss.
Yeah.
So Joey has time here. Maybe in a Swiss game you would have scooped this game.
Yeah, I think so.
Gone to Game 3 and only had 15 minutes left to complete your game. But now Joey's got 40 minutes. He can take his time and really try to pull out this game that he probably doesn't think that he has a great shot at, but he's still going to give it a chance because he has so much time.
Right, yeah, I agree with that. Definitely correct to stay in the game for as long as possible. And going to play the end. Really funny that we are 3 or 4 turns into this game and both players still drawing 6 cards off of their prizes. Certainly not uncommon for the Greninja deck, but usually Buzzwole Lycanroc has taken some knockouts by the 3rd, 4th turn of the game.
There's definitely a lot of damage on the board. Edwin's definitely in a very good position just board state-wise.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what he does and how he can take advantage of this board state that he's been put into.
Yeah, so this Ultra Ball going to go get another evolution. It's almost got to be Frogadier. Going to evolve the benched Froakie to Frogadier, potentially conceding the active Froakie if he misses the bubble flip. It goes with Brooklet Hill. Say, oh, can I get another Froakie on the bench? Maybe Staryu? Decides against it. going to just shuffle his deck.
Yeah, he's out of, no, he's not out of Froakies. He should have one more Froakie left.
Right, he should have one more Froakie left. I don't think he discarded one with Ultra Ball. That doesn't make any sense. So maybe deciding he wants to keep that bench spot open in case he wants Staryu later, but surely he's going to open up some more bench spaces as the game goes on. So an interesting play. We'll see if he hits the bubble flip. He does. Buys him a little bit of time as it paralyzes the Buzzwole. There it is. Turn to the right to mark. I am paralyzed. I can do nothing this turn unless I have Guzma.
Yeah, so now what Joey can do is he can sit here and if Edwin does not have a Guzma and an energy to be able to take a knockout or to do any sort of attack or retreat, well, there's the Float Stone.
Or Float Stone. That's another piece that you can use.
If Edwin doesn't have the Guzma here, he just has to pass. And it gives Joey another turn to set up, a Greninja Break and a Greninja on that Frogadier, and he could probably just bubble again, trying to stall one more turn to get himself into that double Greninja Break like we were talking about earlier.
Right, a much needed turn that he would be buying with this bubble flip here. Not sure if Edwin has got the pieces right now to reach for Guzma, and Abyssal Hand is not going to help him get there either because his hand has just got a bunch of cards in it, so he can't really thin it out too low to try and draw as many cards as possible to find the Guzma. Considering an energy attachment here, that is one card he can play from his hand. Doesn't know if he wants to put it on the active Buzzwole or if he wants to spread it around, maybe put it on Lycanroc or the other benched Buzzwole. We'll see what he decides to go with.
Yeah. It looks like he might be able to draw one card here on this Abyssal Hand, and if it is that Guzma, then he is in a very strong position.
Yeah, Guzma just pulls up the one Greninja that's on the board, immediately knocks it out, and would pretty much put Joe's board into a terrible position. Goes with the Abyssal Hand for one. It is not Guzma. Also does not attach to the active, so even if he were to have hit the Guzma, it would not have been a Knuckle Impact. So he's going to just pass the turn, flips his card back to the front up position, and Greninja Break, the first one, has hit the board and has a Splash Energy to boot.
And a Greninja, and then he's going to Brook the Hill. I think we're going to see something come down this time.
Yeah, it's got to be, well, I don't know. I guess it could either be Froakie or Staryu. They are still both available, assuming he didn't discard them with Ultra Ball, and I cannot remember if he did discard the Froakie. There it is right there.
Yeah, Froakie's there.
They are both in the deck.
Yeah, he's moved both to the bottom of the deck. He hasn't made a decision yet. He decides on the Staryu. I think the Staryu is probably correct.
I go both ways on it. I'm not really sure exactly what is more optimal there. He does have Cynthia to shuffle 6, but I mean, this Froakie is going to get knocked out probably through Jet Punch at some point, the one that he has active. Unless he can, even if he evolves it into a Frogadier, it's still within range of getting sniped by Jet Punch.
Yeah.
So he would be going with just these 2 Greninjas that he has on the board. And while we have been saying that 2 Greninja Break is a win condition, 2 Greninja Break, one of which is already weakened and pretty easy to get knocked out, not necessarily a checkmate scenario. He's going to need to generate a 3rd Greninja Break this game.
Now, we could see the Espeon EX and the Tapu Lele come into play this game. Tapu Lele, of course, can use Energy Drive. With 2 energies on it, it can do a decent amount of damage against some of these Pokemon that are on Edwin's board.
Going to retreat the Froakie. Has an Enhanced Tamer. That is critical. It sets that active Buzzwole down to just 1 energy, means you can't attach an energy and knock me out with Knuckle Impact.
Yep.
And also has a Water Energy to activate his Giant Water Shuriken. He's going to go with the Shadow Stitching. Has the Choice Band active, so it will be 70 in total, as Joey does catch that. Sets up that perfect math that you had mentioned in Game 1. One more Giant Water Shuriken, that Buzzwole goes down.
Yeah, you can do either the Giant Water Shuriken or the Shadow Stitching, depending on what he wants to do. If he does the Giant Water Shuriken somewhere else, then he can ensure that he's doing damage to the 2 targets that he wants to do damage to, instead of giving Edwin the choice of at least one of those 2 targets.
Right, yeah, technically in that scenario, 10 of his damage goes to waste because he only needs to apply 70 to the active, and the Shadow Stitching would be doing 70 instead of the 60. But yeah, I think I agree with you there. Putting the 60 on the other bench Buzzwole or the Lycanroc, both are very fine options, and then just Shadow Stitching for the knockout. Probably a more correct move. Edwin's going to play N here. Doesn't really have a great turn right now going for him. His Buzzwole is just going to be able to attack for, 30 damage, and he can knock out that Froakie on the bench, which is nice, and get a prize there and actually take the first prize card of the game. But doesn't have a Buzzwole with a lot of energies to follow this Buzzwole up. The only real big play he's got coming up is a Dangerous Rogue in the making, but that's really it.
Now, we were talking about the Espeon. I mentioned that Espeon could come into play here. Espeon actually would be a very strong play if this Dangerous Rogue does ever hit the board. with these giant water shurikens, you can just put a giant water shuriken on the Lycanroc, put one on the Octillery, and kind of just be able to knock out both the Rockruff and the Remoraid, leaving Edwin without those energy and without his draw power.
Yeah, the big move there is that he's knocking out the energies, removing energies from the board, making it so that the Buzzwole Lycanroc deck is not going to be doing a lot of damage. And also, like you're saying, removing the ability to use Abyssal Hand. If you're conceding a turn of using Shadow Stitching, but in the process you're removing Abyssal Hand, it's okay that your opponent has access to abilities because there's no Abyssal Hand to be had.
He does decide to just take the damage on the active, so now it puts Edwin in a really rough position. Which Pokemon do I want to take this 70 damage?
Right, yeah. What do we want to have Shadow Stitching? We don't actually know how many energies are in Joey's hand. It's very possible that he could also just retreat into the other Greninja Break and attach an energy to it, and also potentially have another Giant Water Shuriken. Edwin going to opt for the Tapu Lele GX. Yeah, Joey does have more energies in his hand, so he can apply some more pressure if he wants to use another Giant Water Shuriken. Going to Ultra Ball here, probably goes and gets going to be the Starmie, right. So now the energies are going to really start flowing for Joey. Edwin's got no way to shut off the abilities on Joey's side, so Space Beacon always going to be supplying 2 water energies every turn to Joey, which means double Water Shuriken after double Water Shuriken.
He's going to be putting down a lot of pressure. He can't just simply retreat here, Giant Water Shuriken, and then use his Shadow Stitching.
Yep, Giant Water Shuriken on one of the 2 main attackers that's on Edwin's board certainly would be a strong move here. I could technically also just Giant Water Shuriken the Rockruff, take another prize there, and then go with the Shadow Stitching. Have to then also want to try to take another odd prize, which could be through that Octillery. We'll see what he opts for, as he actually hasn't even played a supporter this turn. So he goes with the Professor Sycamore. Field Blower as well, removing Stadium as well as the Float Stone, and this has been an incredible turn for Joey.
We see a Frogadier in Joey's hand, but I think he's conceding that he's not going to go and hit another Greninja this game. Or maybe this is just Froakie. No, it's Froakie and Greninja. We do see the Space Beacon, so he's going to be able to do another Shadow Stitching and another Giant Water Shuriken.
Yeah, and he wants to go straight for that Lycanroc GX. Here comes the Water Energy down. Shadow Stitching will do 40, and it's incredible to see this Greninja deck do this without using Water duplicates. He's gotten there by just manually evolving these Pokemon up to these break evolutions. And now Edwin, if he doesn't have Guzma, which he does right here, he would have been stuck with the Lele, but with the Guzma, he's able to pull up the one of Starmie that Joey plays, really kind of slowing down just how many energies can really fly across the board.
If Joey's able to get one more water energy this game, he's played at least 4 of them. I'm not sure how many are in his discard pile. I would really like to see Giant Water Shuriken on the Remoraid. How many? 1, 2. Yeah, it looks like there's only 1 water energy left in Joey's deck. If he is able to draw into that water energy and in the Giant Water Shuriken, the Octillery, he can go ahead and just take the knockout with the Miraculous Shine on both those 2 Pokemon and put himself in a much better position.
Right, yeah. Running a little thin on energies because he does have a water committed both to his Tapu Lele GX and his Espeon EX. So doesn't have very many energies floating about, and without the Starmie on the board, much harder to draw into them. Joey does play a 1 of Super Rod, which will allow him to shuffle in more energies if he wants, and he has already Rescue Stretchered the Starmie back into the deck, saying, I can try and set this back up, get more energies flowing, so definitely not locked to the low energy count that he currently has at his disposal. We'll see as the rest of the turn plays out here, how many Giant Water Shurikens is he going to have access to this turn?
It is a little unfortunate for Joey here that he did Field Blower the Brooklet Hill last turn.
Right, yeah.
Because now he can't go grab his Staryu
back, yep. I don't think he's got any basic water in his hand. Joey tends to hold his hand in such a way that it's hard to see what cards are in there, but I don't think there is a basic water, just a splash energy, so it's just going to be Shadow Stitching.
I wonder if we're going to see him use Greninja's second attack and put the energy back in his hand.
Looking to retreat into the other break, which has the Choice Band. Now Shadow Stitching does 70. Moonlight Slash would be 110 max if you wanted to return the splash energy, which you probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
So it would be 90 damage. I think Shadow Stitching is probably fine here.
Yeah, Shadow Stitching is just what he's going to go for. He forgets again about the choice band.
Yeah, because now Lycanroc only has 70 HP left. That's one more Shadow Stitching away from being knocked out. Joey getting closer and closer to closing out this top 8 match. Edwin needs to start taking more knockouts and figuring out how he's going to put together some 2 prize knockouts here, because that Lele and the Espeon have been on the board all game pretty much, and neither have been knocked out yet.
Yeah, and it might be a little while until they're really relevant this game. Unless he can Guzma the next 2 turns in a row, which probably won't happen.
Yeah.
He's only going to end up taking 1 for the game. He does knock out this Greninja break, but Joey is going to get all of his Greninja pieces back.
Puts a fat stack of water Pokemon back into his hand there. Does help a little bit. You can just put that Greninja back down onto the Frogadier. And that is, like I said, he's going to need to build 3 breaks this game, and he's going to do that.
He's going to at least get this Greninja down. He can N if he wants to. He attaches another Splash. Yeah, he can N if he wants to. Yeah, put himself down to 4, put his opponent down to 3, and then just followed by another Shadow Stitching. Doesn't knock out quite yet.
Right, he would need a Choice Band or a Water Energy for Shadow Stitching to knock out this active. The N is a little interesting. I know Joey just is trying to see more cards, but Edwin's hand was pretty dead, and based on how his previous turn had played out, seemed pretty demonstrated that, yeah, I don't really have very many options available to me right now. But Joey really looking for that Choice Band, really looking for a Water Energy here to get this knockout and say, now I don't have to worry about Dangerous Rogue or Claw Slash anymore. And I think I did see a Water Energy drawn.
Oh, and no. At least the Staryu.
I think it was the Staryu was the card that I saw. We'll see. See a Sycamore. Joey just really likes to hide his hand from the camera. I don't think there's a Water Energy there or a Choice Band. He's going to go with the Moonlight Slash, returns the Water Energy to his hand, gets the knockout, and then also does supply a Water Energy for Giant Water Shuriken later. The only critical thing to note here is now the N not nearly as impactful because Edwin has got access to Wonder Tag and Abyssal Hand this turn.
So we'll have to see if Edwin's able to hit maybe, so he can go Lycanroc here and Dangerous Rogue. It is an option for him. We did see that the Joey just got that Enhanced Hammer off of his prize cards, and this Greninja Break will go back into Joey's hand, so he will have outs to get rid of that energy and slow Joey. I mean, slow Edwin back down, but he gets ended too. And like we were saying earlier, this Greninja deck doesn't have any way to
recover from these late ends.
To recover from these late ends.
He don't draw a lot of cards, and doesn't have the Starmie on board yet. Even if he did, wouldn't matter too much, because if this Greninja were to get knocked out by Dangerous Rogue, then he wouldn't have a break. Oh, he would have a break because of the Splash Energy. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, only getting 2 cards off of the end might really start to hurt him. So we're going to shuffle. It's going to be 3 for Edwin, 2 for Joey. Let's see if there is a Lycanroc GX. I don't see it yet, but he does have access to Abyssal Hand. No, it is in his hand. He's going to play it. Does not activate the ability. He could actually pull up one of the GXs and take the 2 prizes off of them. Not going to do that, just goes ahead and attaches Choice Band. Dangerous Rogue can knock out the Greninja, and with another Strong Energy, actually, Claw Slash can knock out the Espeon GX, or actually, you just need another energy. A regular Claw Slash would knock out the Tapu Lele as it is already damaged.
Real quick, we do have updates from all 3 of our other matchups. We do, in fact, see Buzzwole Lycanroc win each of those matchups.
Oh, wow.
So we have Igor Costa over Kyle Sabahouse, Ryan Sabos over Kyle Lesnowitz, and Alex Mansky over Athavan Balandron. So next round, we will be seeing Igor Costa and Ryan Sablehouse, a very high-key matchup on stream. So look forward to that.
It looks like this top cut is going to be Greninja versus the World, and that World is nothing but Buzzwole Lycanrocs. Edwin, if he wants to join the other Buzzwole Lycanroc players in top 4 and create that total 100% Buzzrock top 4, you're gonna have to push through this game and then also win a 3rd hard-fought game. Joey just 2 prizes away from pushing forth to the top 4 and facing yet another one of these Buzzwole Lycanroc decks.
They do have a little bit of time left. They might be able to pull off a complete 3rd game.
Yeah.
This one game in itself has lasted, 30, 40 minutes.
So. It has been a long game, yeah, for sure. Edwin did not take very many prizes early. There was a lot of jet punches, a lot of spreading of damage. We could still see a little bit of the evidence of that with that 50 on the bench Tapu Lele. Let's get back down into exactly how these turns are playing out, as Joey has still that break in the active. He got knocked out in the previous turn by that dangerous rogue, but the splash energy supplying him with another Greninja break has drawn plenty of cards since then. And is going to go with Miraculous Shine. This is going to clear the Lycanroc attacking abilities off the board entirely.
Yeah. So there is still an out for Edwin to just use this Buzzwole GX on the bench to win the game. If he's able to hit an Elixir and a Float Stone, then he can hit a Strong Energy, or Guzma in an Elixir. He does have multiple basic energies in hand.
He's flicking through his cards. He's got a huge hand there, two of which we know are the Octillery and the Lycanroc GX because they just got returned via the Espeon's Miraculous Shine attack. Let's see if Edwin can put together these two knockouts, or this final two prize knockout rather, and move this to a game 3.
There's not a win condition for Joey on his next turn quite yet, unless there's some sort of Guzma play. There's no way for him to retreat twice in this next turn, and he doesn't play Guzma to switch.
Right.
So the game's still not over for Edwin, even if he does not hit the knockout this turn.
Of course, Edwin does need to re-evolve that Remoraid into Octillery, otherwise it is just one giant Water Shuriken away from getting knocked out, but surely probably going to want to use Abyssal Hand this turn as well, so definitely not going to forget that. Attaches a Choice Band to the Buzzwole. There is one of the two energies he needs. There's the Octillery. All we need to see is a Max Elixir because he's got the Float Stone as well. If he hits a Max Elixir, he's going to be able to close this game out.
Yeah, let's see. Joey flies through that pile so fast.
Also has Regirock, and that's fine to bench that because it looks like Edwin's going to be going with a Cynthia here.
And he has at least 2 of them left in the deck.
Abyssal Hand draws energy. Sycamore, or is that...
That's a Sycamore. He has a Cynthia in hand as well. The Cynthia definitely has to be the one to be played here because of those 2 basic fighting energies in the hand.
Right.
The deck is pretty thin, so if he does draw into those Max Elixirs, I imagine that he'll hit them.
Yeah, because putting those 2 fighting energies back into the deck definitely increases the odds of hitting those Max Elixirs. Now it comes down to, can Edwin draw the Max Elixir off of 6? Doesn't have that Abyssal Hand anymore as he has already used it. We will see if these 6 cards produces Max Elixir, and then from there, if that Max Elixir will hit, and Knuckle Impact will close the game out. I'm not sure I've seen Max Elixir yet.
Wow.
I saw Mew and some energies. One more card. Is the Max Elixir? Wait, he only drew 4. There are 6 cards now. There is a Max Elixir in his hand. He plays down the Max Elixir. Let's see if there's a fighting energy in those cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, no fighting energy. Misses another Max Elixir.
Joey has a little mini pop off after that heart attack that he must have just suffered.
Super close. Now, of course, Edwin does not lose this game immediately, not just yet. He just doesn't close the game right this moment. But missing that Max Elixir, Edwin has just not been able to hit these Max Elixirs this match, and really just stalling out a little bit against Greninja, but we still have got a tight game 2. What do you think he does now that he doesn't have that 3rd energy? Do you think he goes for a Jet Punch?
You know, he can throw it up. He can't leave any of these other Pokemon active. That's the biggest issue here. He can maybe send up the Buzzwole on his bench. That's the only thing that can take a hit. If he sends up the Octillery, it's just going to get knocked out by a giant Water Shuriken and an attack.
Right.
This Regirock EX is going to sit there and do nothing. So is the other Buzzwole GX. If he doesn't hit a Guzma or a Float Stone to get out of the active, he just ends up losing. The Sudowoodo has Water weakness, so it'll get knocked out. Tapu Lele is just a giant Water Shuriken and an attack away from getting knocked out. So it's like, what other options does he have?
I guess he just goes in, uses the Jet Punch. It will soften up both of these 2 prized Pokemon. I imagine that's what he does, right? He would just also put it on the Lele, make that a little bit... I guess it doesn't really matter. He's going to put the 50 on...
If he puts the 30 on the Froakie, he can Guzma Shaman and the Froakie. It's probably irrelevant. But...
Oh, you mean Guzma up the Staryu and with the strong energy could knock out that as well. He does have the evolution, Joey does, for the Frogadier. And a Brooklet Hill, chooses to activate that, and there is
a bunch of Froakies
in there. Not going to get any of them. He could. He doesn't.
I'd assume you would want to get one so that you just don't draw into it later.
Exactly. Yeah. He doesn't need the bench space for anything. He's already played out everything else, but choosing not to do that at this point, which is certainly also fine. Going to shuffle after that, and considering how am I going to pick up this last prize. Without playing Guzma, Joey has to... he can't win this turn because he just doesn't play the Guzma. He can only go into the active here, activate the giant Water Shuriken, also has Field Blower to remove the Choice Band in his own Brooklet Hill. Decides to keep it, why not?
He doesn't discard the choice bound on the active. I think that's pretty smart. It means that the float stone can never come down on that active.
Yeah, so now Guzma actually cannot win Edwin the game because he doesn't have a way of pivoting off of his bench Pokemon. None of them can retreat currently. So we're going to see the Shadow Stitching come down. Edwin draws, let's see here. We need Guzma Energy Float Stone. Or Guzma Energy Max Elixir, hit the Max Elixir so that you can retreat with the Lele. Those are the ways he can immediately win this game. If he misses it, you have to retreat the Buzzwole. Otherwise, well, you can't really retreat the Buzzwole.
No, you can't. I mean, it's only got 2 retreat costs. You can throw it back. It's not knocking out the active right now, not without a strong energy.
Yep.
Now, I'm not sure how many he's played, but he definitely has that one prize, and I don't see one in his hand.
Right. He does have that strong energy, though. Removing the Greninja Break, he does go for Professor Sycamore, say, let's see if we can find strong energy here. Knocking out the break means there's no Greninja Break on Joey's board the following turn. Not sure I even saw strong energy there, though.
Yeah, I don't see any energy, actually. Oh, you see double Max Elixir.
Double Max Elixir, not quite good enough anymore. Unfortunate that he just couldn't quite put together that knockout in the previous turn, because now Max Elixir doesn't really do much for him. He's going to just announce that's going to be Jet Punch. 30 to the active. 32. Let's put it on. What's going to be it? Again, doesn't seem to really matter that much. Let's go with the Staryu.
Yeah, the Staryu seems like the best bet there. He top decks the Evo Soda.
Evo Soda's for Starmie, and that's going to give him the energy. And then he goes with the Space Beacon, gets the energies out of his discard pile. Giant Water Shurikens, the active.
The Octillery.
Oh, the Octillery. That's what it's going to be. And the Miraculous Shine will de-evolve the Octillery. Put that Remoraid down to the 60 damage. Only has 60 HP. Gets knocked out. And that's going to be Joey's final prize. He is going to push forth into the top 4, being the lone 9 Zoroark, or rather Buzzwole Lycanroc deck in the rest of this top cut.
Yeah, we saw that matchup was a little bit tough for Joey, and his opponent had to have a few key misses for him to be able to pull that one out. So we'll have to see if he can continue this streak of luck. And of course, Joey's still a great player, but he's going to need some help to get through this field of Buzz Rocks everywhere.
All right, guys, we're going to take the slightest of breaks. We will quickly interview